Welcome to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, bringing you the right information right now to sculpt a more meaningful and memorable life of success. Join us each week to discover gems to help you grow your mental toughness, expand your will to win, and multiply your results. It's never been easier to learn what to do and how to do it to succeed at what you choose to do.
This is truly an experience you won't find anywhere else.
Now, here's your host, the Success Sculptor himself, Stephen Pierce.
Today I want to talk about 7 barriers to your success. Understanding these barriers to your success are absolutely critical to you becoming, successful. So let's talk about the first one. The first one is being reasonable. What that means is when you're being reasonable, you're going for what you think you can get versus what it is you really want. Think about that. You're going for what you think you can get versus what it is you really, really want. See, you can't make what's possible happen until you actually imagine it and also believe that it can be yours. Many of us, we live our life through the rearview mirror in terms of thinking that what can be done is based on what we've already done. And now we know that's not true, right? I mean, a lot of things that you've accomplished in your life today, you didn't accomplish it before. They were first-time accomplishments. So just because you haven't done something yet, like I talked about in the previous show, using the word yet, because if we say yet, that means it hasn't happened yet, and we are presupposing that it will happen, right? So just because you haven't accomplished that thing yet does not mean you can't accomplish it. And just because you haven't done it before doesn't mean you can't do it. See, there's a difference between possibilities and probabilities. A lot of the times we look at our life and we wonder what's possible. Well, you know what? A lot of things are possible. In fact, what's possible for you and I is really without measure. But yet we think in those realms. Hey, is it possible for me to lose X amount of pounds? Of course it is. Is it possible for you to have a happy marriage or a successful relationship or a flourishing business or a multi-million-dollar business, or to be debt-free, or to contribute to X number of organizations at X amount every single year, or to feed X number of hungry people, or whatever the objective is? When we ask the question, is it possible? The answer is going to always be a resounding yes for the most part. However, understanding what's possible doesn't really help us in the moment, because we need to understand, being clear on what's possible for us, we need to understand, well, what do I need to be focusing on right now? And if you're being reasonable, well, I really want to have this, I really want to be happily married, totally deeply in love with my spouse, and both of us working together in a family business that's doing, say, $10 million a year. And chances are you've never done that before. But if you think, well, that's what I really, really want, but that's not likely to happen, then how are you going to be living your life today? How are you going to be thinking? How are you going to be functioning? How are you going to be operating? You're not going to be operating on a level that's going to allow you to actually experience that. You're not going to be engaging with your spouse in that way, because it's not likely to happen. You're not going to be going forward in business with the level of intensity and focus and work ethic to produce that level of business success, because in your mind, that's not likely to happen, because you're being reasonable. So what should we be focusing on? Or here's what I propose you focus on. You focus on probabilities as opposed to possibilities, because probabilities are things that we can actually impact. We can actually influence probabilities, right? Because let's just say you want to have a successful business. What are the probabilities of you having a successful business if you never actually start the business? Right? It's not going to happen. I mean, the probabilities are zero, because for you to have a successful business, you have to start some business. Now, the first business you start may not necessarily be the one that succeeds, but you have to start somewhere with some business at some point if you want to have a successful business. If you want to lose 50 pounds, what are the probabilities of you losing 50 pounds if you're stuffing down 5,000 or 10,000 calories a day and you're consuming most of those right before you go to bed? The probabilities are likely to be zero, right? And listen, I talked about this before in previous episodes, and I'm coming back to this again in terms of possibilities versus probabilities, because it's important. Because if it acts as a filter, we start to look at what it is we're doing, and we ask ourselves, hey, listen, based on what it is I want to accomplish, based on whom it is I want to become, based on the level of contribution that I want to be able to make, or whatever my goal is, my vision is, my mission is. What are the probabilities of me achieving that, experiencing that, and being, doing, and having that, and contributing in that way if I do this thing? In other words, what are the probabilities of my success if I do this or I don't do this? How is me engaging in this going to influence or impact my goals, my objectives, my vision, my mission? So what we do is when we think in terms of probabilities, we can start to look at what it is we're doing on a day-to-day basis and start to navigate based on, hey, if I do this thing, if I consume 5 hours of television and mindless social media and gossiping and all this other stuff, what's going to be the impact on my goals? What's going to be the impact on my objectives? Is it going to increase the probabilities of my success or decrease the probabilities of my success? And listen, if you know that what you're about to do is going to decrease the probabilities of your success, then it goes back to what we were talking about previously and actually last week. Do you want to succeed or do you refuse to live without it? Right? Because the moment you refuse to live without it and you understand in this very moment right now, something you're about to engage in is going to decrease your probabilities of success, then you're not going to do it. So this will help you to be aware of what it is you're doing so that you don't end up sabotaging yourself. Having that level of awareness day to day is important because we don't want to start stumbling going forward. Hey, listen, you can know what you want to accomplish in terms of the big picture, but if you don't bring that down into your day to day, you can end up stumbling through your days and ultimately sabotaging yourself because you're not fully aware of how what it is you're doing from 1 hour to the next is influencing and impacting the probabilities of your success. All right, so the first thing, again, the first of the 7 barriers to success is being reasonable. It's going for what we think we can get versus what it is we really, really want. And listen, raise the standards of how it is you're living. Raise the standards of what you really believe is possible and probable for yourself. And don't just stay stuck in possibilities, because we can become incredibly excited and enthusiastic and motivated and inspired by possibilities. But we have to roll up our sleeves and get to work to influence the probabilities, because the probabilities are directly linked to what it is you and I are doing on a day-to-day basis. You don't really impact what's possible for you. Hey, listen, think about all the things we experience in life today. The technology and all the things that we are able to take advantage of and leverage and enjoy today. 100 years ago, it didn't exist. In fact, maybe 100 years ago, people didn't even imagine the things that we're experiencing today. But somebody at some point in time in history began to imagine the possibilities, and they realized, hey, listen, man, anything is possible. But then they had to get to work on the probabilities and building the technology and all the different things that we're able to benefit from today. So let's stop being reasonable. Stop bowing down our goals to those who have lesser visions and smaller dreams that may be around us, that are telling you that's not possible. Oh, you're being unrealistic. Hey, we want to be unrealistic in the minds and eyes of other people because they're not who we're measuring our dreams against. Right? So let's stop being reasonable and let's start being very, very, very unreasonable. Let's be the opposite of that. Okay, so what is number 2? The second barrier to success is more of the same. You're trying harder, but you're not trying differently. See, trying harder is a prescription for disappointment. I'm trying. But we have to look at, hey, am I doing the right thing? Because you can do hard the things you should hardly be doing. You understand what I'm saying? Hey, we want to make sure that what it is we are engaging in are the things we're supposed to be engaging in, right? And then there's actually two sides to this deal of more of the same, right? There's more of the same of what got you to where it is you are. Right? Because see, what got you to where you are today is not going to be the thing that's going to take you to where it is you want to be tomorrow or where it is you want to be next year or in 3 years or in 5 years. Things are constantly shifting. And if we get stuck in more of the same, we'll become extinct because the things we're doing could become obsolete. There's like Wayne Computers. Where's Wayne Computers? Where's Pan American Airlines? What happened to Blockbusters? What happened to a lot of different companies that had the opportunity to look at what's possible and work on the probabilities of being those market leaders, but they didn't. They got caught up in doing more of what it was they were already doing. And as a result, they became blinded to what can be. And that's a trap, being so caught up in what is, we don't see what can be. That's one of the traps of doing more of the same. And another thing is doing the same thing is comfortable. We're used to it. We're accustomed to it, right? He's like, hey, look, I can do this, but doing that, I mean, come on. It's like if you're used to running, and maybe you're used to running, say, 7.5 on a treadmill. But the idea of running at 10.5 or 11.5 or 11.5 or 12 is like, man, that's going to be pretty tough. That's going to push you out there, and that's going to make you uncomfortable. But guess what? The moment you break out of doing more of the same on that treadmill or wherever you want to apply this idea, you're going to start to increase your conditioning, right? In the sense of the treadmill, it's going to be your physical conditioning, your heart health. All of those are going to be improved. And it's the same thing in our life. The moment we stop trying to do harder the things that are hardly working, and don't get me wrong, hey, listen, there's certain things you've done that have worked to get you to where it is you are on a positive scale. And then there's things that you've done that have got you to where you are in certain areas of your life that you're not necessarily happy with. So what we have to do is be very realistic in how we're looking at our life. I'm not talking about being realistic about what we can accomplish. I'm talking about being real and honest about where we are and how we got here. And we got here by what it is we're doing. Other people could have influenced us, right? We could have maybe bowed down our will to other people, bowed down our identity to other people. But the bottom line is it is our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, and what it is we've done that's gotten us to this particular place. So what do we need to do? We need to step back and evaluate that and say, hey, listen, if I do more of what's gotten me here, where am I going to be in a few months? Where am I going to be in a few years? Right. And when you're doing something new, guess what? There's a lot of things when you're doing something new, like maybe you haven't done a business before, or there's certain things in life that you want to accomplish that's going to require you to learn new things. And that's for most of us, if not all of us. And when you engage in it, hey, listen, it may not work necessarily the first time. Your initial plan may not work. That's why you have what are called contingency plans. Contingency plans are running what if scenarios. Hey, if I do A, B, and C and it doesn't work, then what? We don't back down. We don't run. We don't shrink from it. We alter our approach, right? So we're not going to try harder doing the same thing that's not working. If you run the wrong way to see the sunset, no matter how fast you run, no matter how hard you run, no matter how enthusiastic you are and positive you are, you're not going to see the sunset because you're going in the wrong direction. Right? So we want to make sure that all the energy and resources that we apply to improve our life, to increase the quality of our lives, and to make an impact in this earth the way that we want to make an impact, that we are applying it in the right direction, that we are applying it in the right way. So we don't want to be doing more of the same, unless it's the stuff that's working until it stops working. But for most of us, for the most part, we're doing it too much. We're doing the same stuff that's not going to work, or it's run its course, it's obsolete, or it's irrelevant, or it's the polar opposite of what it is we need to be doing, like more of the same television consumption, right? The more of the same of reading garbage as opposed to reading things that are going to feed your mind and help you to become that better leader, that better husband, that better wife, that better mom, that better dad, that better business owner, that better manager, that better whomever, that leader in your community. We're not consuming those things. So consuming more of the same empty calories and bad foods in our body is not the recipe for great health and vitality. So what makes us think that if we consume or do more of the same things in business or in our relationships, that negative is going to equal a positive? It's not so, but it's up to us to be aware of that. It's up to us to understand, hey, listen, what am I getting as a result of doing this? Is it working or is it not working? Having that level of awareness. I mentioned awareness, before with barrier number one. but having a certain level of awareness of, hey, listen, I'm doing this, but what's happening? And when you realize it's not working, it's not a sign to give up. It's not an omen. It's not meant to happen for me. And listen, that's not the case. It's just letting you know, feedback. Hey, listen, what it is you're doing or how you're doing it is not necessarily working. And that right there is another thing to be aware of, because it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. You can be doing the right thing, but you can be doing it the wrong way, right? Like people run ads online all the time. A lot of people make money. A lot of people lose money. People make and lose money in stocks. It's like making money buying stocks. Can you make money buying stocks? Is it possible? Yes. Okay, absolutely. What are the probabilities based on your trading strategy, right? That's where the difference maker is, right? Because when people are making money in stocks, guess what? Whether they're going broke or they're getting rich, they're all doing the same thing. You can only do one of three things. You can go long, which is buy. You can go short, which is sell, or you can stay on the sidelines, which is do neither one, right? You could do neither one. But if you're buying, which is the right thing to do if you want to buy stocks that are going up, but you're buying at the wrong time, it's a recipe for pain, a recipe for disaster. So when we're evaluating what it is we're doing, we want to look at those two sides of the coin. Am I doing the right thing? If not, then what's the right thing to do? If I am doing the right thing, then am I doing the right thing the right way? Right? So again, the second barrier to success of the 7 is more the same, trying harder and not trying differently. And right there is the thing to keep our eye on. It's not about giving up. It's not about quitting. It's about understanding, do I need to do it differently, or do I need to do different things? Never about quitting. Never about giving up, never about throwing in the towel. And when we get bumped, bruised, or knocked down, we always have the resiliency and the intestinal fortitude to get back up and do it again and figure it out, because it's up to us to figure that thing out. Wouldn't you agree? That is up to us. And many times we can get discouraged when things aren't working out for us, and we just kind of give up, not realizing, hey, listen, you were actually doing the right thing. You're just not doing it the right way. And with a little coaching or a little studying or just a little bit more tweaking, you can actually start doing the right thing the right way and start to experience that success that you have been looking for. All right, so what's number 3? Because today we're talking about the 7 barriers to success. And number 3, doubt. Doubt is believing in your limits and not your unlimited potential. Remember, impossible is not a fact. It's just an opinion, right? That's an old saying, been around for a while, but it's true. And here's the interesting thing. Doubt is belief. You're believing something, just like faith is believing something. None of us lack a belief. What we want to do is look at, what are we believing? Are we believing in what we can do, or are we believing in what we can't do? See, believing in what you can do, people will equate to having faith, right? Believing in what you can't do is having doubt. Doubt is an abuse of your belief system. Doubt is a abuse of your belief system, and it's a personal abuse, because we're the ones that choose our doubts. We're the one that choose our doubts. Hey, listen, I have a saying, and I asked the question, what is it going to be? Are you going to control the future of your doubts, or are your doubts going to control your future? It's going to be one or the other, because we all always have the temptation to doubt, but we don't have to give in to that temptation to doubt. You believe, you just believe you can't. You believe it won't happen. You don't believe it's possible. Right? Regardless of the immeasurable possibilities for both my life, your life, and everyone's life, you are not believing you can. And that is what is called doubt. Now, the question is, where does that belief or that doubt come from? Are you born doubting what you can do? Are you born doubting what you can accomplish? Are you born doubting the level that you can grow to and what you can accomplish and the level that you can contribute on? Is that a doubt that you're born with? No, we learn about limitations. We learn how to doubt. We learn what to fear and how to fear. The question is, where are you learning that from? It's coming from someplace. It's coming from somewhere. My question is, for you, myself, and for everyone, where did we learn to doubt ourselves? Was it someone that constantly berated us and put us down and tried to make us feel small, and then we just succumbed to all of the verbal abuse or even physical abuse, and now we doubt because we look like grasshoppers in the eyes of this world that seems to be so big? The vision that you really want to have seems so big. And by the way, this ties in to being reasonable, going for what you think you can get versus what you want, because you know what you really, really want in life, but because of the doubts, you're only going to go for what you think you can get. And what you think you can get is very, very small. And a lot of the times what we think we can get is based on what we've already gotten, based on what it is we've already done. So you're doubting. That doubt may be real, but it's still a powerful part of your belief system. Think about this. If you have the energy to doubt, you have the energy to have faith, because they're all belief. Think about that. I want you to think about at the core what doubt really is. It is an abuse of your belief system against yourself. You doubt that you can. You doubt that you will. You doubt that it'll happen. You're believing. That's it. You're believing. You have a high level of certainty, which is basically what a belief is feeling certain about something. You have a high level of certainty that something won't happen for you, to you, or to your benefit. So you are therefore doubting it. And listen, we already know a lot about faith. The question is, what about doubt? Now, there's two ways to tackle this. You can look to reduce the doubt or increase the faith. I believe in increasing the faith, right? In other words, look at focusing your belief system on what you can accomplish. And a good starting point is to look backwards on what you've already accomplished, not in light of what other people have accomplished, because we're not talking about comparing ourselves to other people. We're talking about in your life, you started out butt naked and crying, just like everyone else. No skills, nothing. Everything you have, you had to learn up to this point, which shows you have the primary skill that it takes to accomplish anything, the ability to learn. The ability to learn. That is your gift that we all share in common. The question is, why have we decided to learn to doubt what we can do and sabotage ourselves, as opposed to learn how to have faith in what we can do and support ourselves? They're all choices. There's choices that we're making. Granted, we're influenced by environments and by people's personalities and attitudes. And sometimes we can become influenced by what's happened in our past, right? That's real also. But just because something didn't work in the past, a business, a relationship, a job, an idea, an investment, that does not mean that is not going to work today. The past does not have to cast a shadow onto the present or onto your future. And maybe you did have doubts previously. You do not have to carry the doubts into today. You don't have to carry those same doubts into tomorrow. You can make the decision, I will doubt no more. I will no longer abuse my belief system and use my belief system against me, because that's what we're doing. Belief systems. Doubting is a belief. Faith is a belief. You can, you believe it. You can't, you believe it. And as a result of what it is we feel certain about, we can or we can't, that is how we're going to start to think, and that's how we're going to start to act, that's how we're going to start to live. And as a result, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But the interesting thing is that the failure side tends to happen a lot faster when we believe we can, as opposed to the winning and the success side. So I want you to take the time and to evaluate your doubts. Where did they come from? Who gave you that? Is it even yours? If you had a choice to really, if you, in the beginning, when you are, let's just say subconsciously and unaware, establishing and adopting these doubts, If you were fully aware in the moment and someone handed you 2 envelopes, hey, here's an envelope of all the things that you're going to doubt about yourself and your futures and your possibilities, they're going to sabotage you and regulate you to a life of an underperformer, an underachiever, never really experiencing your potential and even coming close to understanding what's possible for you. That's in that envelope. And the other envelope is faith, an unrelenting belief in what you can do and the spirit behind it to go for it against all odds. The odds doesn't even matter. You go for it every single day. You tweak and everything. Every single day, you're figuring out new things and you're growing. You're making progress. You're learning setbacks. You bounce back and you become a beacon of hope for other people. You become something as a monument of what's possible for people, helping other people to overcome their setbacks and their fears, being inspired by what they've seen you've accomplished, being able to provide for your family, not just in this generation, but in generations to come, influencing the thinking of masses, helping them to come from that grasshopper thinking to that giant thinking. That's in the faith envelope. If you were given the choice, would you have chosen the doubt envelope consciously? Of course not. None of us would have done that. We would have definitely chosen the faith envelope. So how did we get all these doubts? You know, I like to look at where I pick up ideas and beliefs from. It's good to know the source, or you can say the root, so you can pull the root up so that it doesn't grow back. But at the same time, I highly recommend you look at what do I need to do to counterpunch these doubts. Faith, by the way, is the perfect counterpunch. It's how you want to use your faith to counterpunch. So you want to look at specific doubts that you may have about yourself or about your future and look at what is the polar opposite you must believe to shut that doubt down, right? What is the polar opposite that you need to focus on in terms of the utilization of your faith and your focus to counterpunch that doubt? And then the more you start to focus on the faith aspect and what you really want to accomplish, not what you fear happening, not what you don't want to have happen, and not what you doubt's going to happen in terms of, well, that business is not going to succeed. What's going to happen is what you really want, it's going to start to get bigger. The energy is going to start to expand. And all of a sudden, the doubts are going to start to shrink and they're going to become duller and duller, and then they're going to start to fade. They may try to come back in. If not the old ones, there can be new doubts that try to come back in. Because as you grow in life, and I'm sure you know this because you've grown in life up to the point where you're listening to this, as you grow, you start to experience new doubts because you're experiencing new challenges in life. But it doesn't matter the level of the doubt, the size of the doubt, or the situation of the doubt. The moment we know how to handle doubt, and that is to be relentless with our faith and our focus, no doubt can stand a chance. No doubt will ever be able to stand a chance in your presence, in the presence of your dreams, in the presence of your hopes and your wishes and what you're aspiring to accomplish, what you aspire to accomplish, your vision, your mission. It could show up, but it's going to step up to get beat down. So what is number 4 of the 7 barriers to success? Number 4 is faith in the familiar, where we find comfort in those old routines. You know, there's an old saying that if you keep on doing what you're doing, you're going to keep on getting what you got. Actually, I don't even believe that. A lot of people believe that. And they believe it because they don't take the time to really think about what that's saying. To believe that if you continue to do what you're doing, you're going to continue to get what you got is to say that nothing else changes. In 2007, 2008, and 2009, people were continuing to do what they were doing. They continued to get up, continued to go to work, continued to do their jobs, and then they got fired. They got laid off. Companies were shut down and closed down. So they continued to do what they were doing, but then something dramatic and huge changed that was out of their control, right? Because whether you're changing or not, in terms of a very specific predetermined direction that you want to change in, if you're not changing, everything around you is changing. So there's no way, it's almost an impossibility for you to continue to get what you've got. In fact, if you are not focused on how can you change for the better in this always changing environment, whatever you don't like right now, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. But why don't we change? Because we have comfort in those old routines, because we have faith in what we're familiar with. It's kind of like tied in with the second barrier of success, doing more of the same, even though that stuff isn't working out for us. Those relationships aren't working out for us. The way we're using our time isn't working out for us, but we're just doing more of the same, hoping that we're going to get a different result. The same thing with faith in the familiar. We're very comfortable with those old routines. Comfort is hypnotic. Comfort is very hypnotic, just like procrastination is hypnotic. And it's a narcotic. We can become addicted to being comfortable. But what makes you comfortable is not what's going to make you great. And we have to decide, what do we want to be? Now, don't get me wrong. When you start to step into your greatness and start to do big things and great things, making great contributions and experiencing outstanding results, there's going to be levels of comfort, but there's still discomfort. If you're looking to build a great, strong body, there's discomfort in the gym. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy the results of it when you're out of the gym, but when you're in their building, it can become very, very uncomfortable when you're pushing those weights and you're starting to increase the weights. But as a result, you're getting stronger. In the gym, you're getting weaker. You're breaking down muscle. But when you're recovering, you're building up the muscle. You're getting stronger. You're getting leaner. You're getting fitter. And the same thing with eating. You're getting healthier. But in the moment, it can feel horrible. It can feel treacherous. I don't like this discomfort. I don't like this pain. But it's all for a purpose. And when you know what that purpose is, being uncomfortable becomes worth it. See, many of us, we don't understand why we should be uncomfortable, why it's a necessity for us to be uncomfortable. So we are just drawn like moths to a flame to our comfort zones. But not knowing that the comfort zone, as you draw to it, you're like sheep going to the slaughter, because your comfort zone is a place of slaughter. It slaughters your dreams. It slaughters your futures. It slaughters what you can actually be in life, because we accomplish not much of anything in our comfort zones. So we don't want to have faith in the familiar. We don't want to continue to find any comfort in those old routines. What we want to do is we want to unlock our hidden capacity for what's possible by focusing on the probabilities and knowing, hey, what must I do, regardless of how I feel about it, regardless of if I'm comfortable or not, what must I do? Because when we get clear on that, we are not going to be bowing down to what's convenient, to what's comfortable. We're going to make sure our emotions are bowing down to our commitment, that our comfort zone is the uncomfort zone. In other words, we get comfortable being uncomfortable because we're driven by our commitment to be, do, have, and contribute a certain way. We're not driven by our emotions being massaged with comfort. That's not how we're driven. That's not what we're looking for. So we're willing to pay that price. We're willing to be in perpetual discomfort. Now, what is number 5? Number 5 is picking the wrong risk. Notice I said picking the wrong risk. And the reason I said the wrong risk is because there's always something at risk. The only question is, will this risk move me toward my higher goals, my vision, my mission, how I want to contribute, or is it going to keep me defending what it is I have? But there's always something at risk. When you risk being loved, you risk being hurt. When you risk winning, you risk losing. When, we cheer athletes, you look at the world, millions, tens of millions of people have their favorite athletic teams or their sports figures, and they cheer them when they're in competition, without all the time being fully aware that in that and how it applies to their life. There may be a certain level of awareness of this externally as they're watching the game or the sport being played, but not realizing in their own life, the game of life that they're playing. As they're sitting there watching their favorite sports team or favorite sports figure engage in competition, they've put it all on the line to risk winning. They have gone out to risk losing. And there's always going to be losses. Not every team wins 100% of their games. Not every athlete wins 100% of their competition. But there's no chance of winning if you don't ever risk losing. You can't win in investments if you don't risk losing the money. You can't win in life if you don't risk losing in life. Just like scared money doesn't make any, is an old saying with investments. Living a scared life means you're not going to have much of a life at all. Think about that. If you live your life just basically drowning in fear, you're not going to go out there and go for it. And yes, there's going to always be something at risk. If you don't go do anything, you risk losing it all. You risk having a life that is meaningful, risk having a life that's impactful, risk having a life that is memorable. You risk your legacy. You risk it all by not going out there because you're afraid of losing, or you want to pick the small risk, or you want to pick something that has no risk. And there's an old saying, I know you heard it before, no risk, no gain, risk and reward. I know this is saying no pain, no gain, but I'm talking about no risk, no gain. Hey, where there's no risk, there's nothing worth winning, right? The bigger the risk, the bigger rewards and all that other kind of stuff. And you know what? It's true. Where there's small risk, there's probably small rewards and small winnings. Put it all on the line intelligently with proper counsel and proper strategy, but go out there and risk it all to win it all. You got one life. Don't put it on the shelf because you're afraid of losses. You're afraid of the pain. Everyone that's winning at whatever it is they've chosen to do have taken losses and will continue to take losses because it is the price of admission to the winner's circle. Remember that. You want to get into the winner's circle, your price of admission is not begging, is not hoping, is not pleading, is not associations. It's you taking your own risk. All right. So what's number 6? The 6th barrier to success: passivity. Being passive, wishing and wanting, and not proactively pursuing. Walker Piercy once said that a tragedy of our modern life is that everything is interesting, but nothing becomes deeply important. Nothing becomes deeply important. We live a life where we sit back and we wish for this and we want for that. If you think about what I talked about in last week's episode, right? The whole idea that there's those that want to succeed and then there's those that refuse to live without it. Those that want to succeed, they're the talkers, always talking, relaxed, in the comfort zone, wishing and wanting, but not rolling up their sleeves, putting their belly to the bar, putting on that hard hat, that flat jacket, or whatever metaphor you want to use for war and work, and going out there and proactively pursuing it. Listen, talking it up all day long is not proactively pursuing it. You can believe in this, speaking into existence all you want to. That ain't happening. You can believe in the law of attraction, just think it and all this other kind of stuff, and it's going to come to you. That ain't happening. Hey, if you got 2 teams entering a game and they're all practicing the law of attraction, 50% of them going to fail because only one team can win the game in terms of the scoreboard. So we have to get off of that passivity nonsense about I'm going to think it into existence. I'm going to speak it into existence. Come on, man. Listen, you want something, build it. Hey, go find an empty field. Go find an empty lot and stand there and attract mentally a building and keep speaking the building into existence and see what gets built. Man, you better get out there and start building. Where's the blueprint? What is it supposed to look like? What's the material that you need? What's the crew that you're going to need? How much time is it going to take? Go to work. See, we always look for these shortcuts. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for a shortcut. But there are so many shortcuts out there that shortcut your life. They shortcut your success. They're not shortcuts to getting you there. They short circuit you from getting there altogether. Because we want to, again, we're trying to attract it into our comfort zone. We want to sit back in our comfort zone with our comfortable socks on and, I'm thinking it, I'm envisioning it. No, hey, listen, don't get me wrong. Having a vision is important. I'm not talking about just a vision board. I'm talking about having a clear mental picture of what you want is important. How can you build a building if you don't know what it's going to look like first? How can you create anything if you don't know what it's going to look like first? Now, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's bad. What I'm saying is when you have such a huge imbalance that is all about speaking stuff into existence, talking it up and attracting it. Where's the work? Show me a team that's attract a win. Nah, I can show you every team that went out there and hustled for a win. They went out there and they played the game against some steep, stiff, hardcore competition and won the game. No team wins the game sitting in the locker room talking about let's hold hands and chant our mantra and let's think deeply and strongly, get a very strong image of us winning. We ain't gonna go out there and play. We're not gonna step foot on the field or on the court. We're just gonna sit back here. And we're going to speak it into existence. We're going to visualize it into existence. Nah, what you're going to do is forfeit the game and lose because you didn't show up and play. We need to get off this passivity and get out there and start proactively hustling and making our dreams happen and build it. If I go to the scriptures, Nehemiah, they build. Zerubbabel and them, they build. Joshua and them went to war. This was all physicality. It was physical stuff. But hey, going out there and doing it. But I know it's really comfortable. Man, it's a great idea if I could just sit back here, chomp on a whole bunch of bad foods, and I can just attract myself into a fit body like an Adonis, if I can use that one. I want to eat all the processed, nasty, GMO-laced, herbicide, insecticide, pesticide, dripping, nasty, bad for me, can kill your foods. But I'm just going to visualize a healthy body, and I'm going to speak my great health into existence. Nah, you going to get sick and die. We need to make sure we're practical in what it is we're doing. But don't get me wrong. I fully, if anybody understands the power of words, I understand the power of words. I understand the power of visions and visualization, right? And imagery. I get it. But I also understand that there's no power sitting back and being passive and not doing anything. There's no power sitting back just wishing and wanting and living this life of passivity. There's no power in that. The power of your visions, the power of your words come alive when they are backed by the power of your actions. That gives life to the vision. That gives life to the words. The spirit behind the words and the vision is what you do to follow them up. And before we close out, I'm not going to leave you with just 6. I'm going to give you number 7. The 7th barrier to success is preparation. Now, I'm not saying preparation is bad. What I'm talking about is when your planning and preparing has turned into procrastination. I call that running in place activities. Forever preparing, never doing. Dude, you've been preparing to start this business for 20 years. You've been preparing to lose weight for 5 years. Man, listen, they build airplanes, cars, and cities faster than you dropped your 100 pounds. Let's stop preparing and let's start doing. Right? I mean, look, again, let's be practical and let's balance it out. We do want to prepare and have the plan. I'm talking about when we overshoot that preparation and that planning, and now it's just becoming procrastination. But we're hiding the procrastination under the banner, I'm still planning. I'm still preparing. No, you're procrastinating. It don't take that long. Hey, how are you going to even know what you're preparing and planning even makes sense? You have to go test it in the game. You have to go test it in life. You have to go test it in war. You have to actually do something with the part of the plan that you have. Because remember, I said this before. Everything is an assumption until you take action. Every plan that you have that you expect to execute if you stop procrastinating is an assumption that is going to work. The only way to approve our assumptions, right or wrong, is to take action. That's it. That's the only way for us to prove our plans to be the right plan or the wrong plan. And that's it. Good plan or bad plan is to take action. So let's stop getting caught up in procrastination and making ourselves feel good about it by calling it preparing and planning. And let's start executing, because it's in the execution, the taking action, that you really start to come alive, that you really start to learn. And I've said it many times before on the show. Action is your biggest teacher. It's great to have coaches, great to have mentors, great to have consultants, great to have inner circles and to be a part of clubs and read books and listen to shows like this and other great shows on Voice America or other podcasts, or watch videos, go to seminars and worship. All that is great, but it's intellectual. Implementation is the testing of the intellect. It is the testing of the information. And is where the real learning begins, and is where the results happen. A seed in a drawer will always remain a seed and never become the harvest. Go out there, plant yourself with action, and produce the harvest that you can produce by overcoming these 7 barriers to success.
Thanks for listening to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce.
If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address,
SuccessSculptingShow.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archives of previous podcasts and check the schedule to join us for our next live streaming Success Sculpting Show webcast. This has been a Success Sculpting Incorporated production. Join us next time for another edition of the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, and tell your friends.